Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Parsha Reflections. It's lovely to have you back. I'm joined today by Rabbi Rose Prevezer, who is a lovely and wonderful friend. Rose, you are a rabbi, an educator, community programmer, and a cultural consultant, and you've just started new work with JW3, our Jewish community center in London. And I'm just super delighted to have you here for this 10 minutes of Parsha that we're going to run through together. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Tell us one thing about yourself today.
I am staring at the most wonderful view of treetops, and the sun has just set, and it is really very lovely to see London from this angle. So, yeah.
Welcome. We are in Parshat Ki Tisa, which is a wonderful place to be. We've just celebrated the crazy festival of Purim in our Jewish calendar. And Moshe, who's our spiritual leader, goes up the mountain to receive the Torah, comes back down again, and sees the most unbelievable sight, which is a golden calf, which has been built in his absence. He's gone for 40 days. The people can't work out where he's disappeared to in the middle of the desert. And they turn to Aaron, who's like number 2 in command, and say, listen, Aaron, he's gone. Let's replace him. Let's build a golden calf so we can worship our God by other means. And the people collect jewelry and build the golden calf. Moshe comes down and sees, he's holding the tablets in his hand, these 2 tablets of stone which have engraved laws upon them. And he sees the golden calf and he smashes the tablets on the floor. For me, it's a story of second chances. If we hadn't had that smashing of the tablets, we would have a much lesser sense in our Jewish lives of the possibility of return, of reflection, of repentance, and of second chances. What's your take, Rose?
Yeah, so I agree with you, and I just want to make clear that the second chance element there is the fact that after the smashing, there's a redo, and Moshe goes back up the mountain and spends more time up there and comes down with the second tablets, from which all our laws and many of our traditions stem. So there's a sort of very literal redo, like rewind, we do it again. It works out well this time, but it also speaks to that element of the people who have committed what is in the eyes of Moshe and in the eyes of God a really terrible sin, made a huge mistake, are given a chance to reset by receiving the tablets and the traditions and history of our people that comes afterwards, and obviously moving further on and flourishing, and all the narratives that stem from that.
It's a fascinating aspect of the tradition that this character Aaron, who's considered to be Rodef Shalom, he's considered to be somebody who pursues peace and the ways of peace, is so totally debilitated by the people's will to build this golden calf, and all he can say is, yep, let's do it, and then is seemingly almost totally forgiven and permitted in relation to the failings of his leadership, in spite of showing no guidance away from what is considered to be this terrible sin of building this idol.
Yeah, and that to me actually is Aaron's behavior here is actually, to me, the real sin of this whole story. The people have come out of Egypt. They are people who were enslaved in Egypt. They've experienced hundreds and hundreds of years of suffering, of starvation, of abuse, of all the things that we know happen when people are enslaved, of feeling the lack of freedom, the lack of agency. They've come out of Egypt. They are, I believe, extremely traumatized. We see that all the way through the text. They're never comfortable. They're never able to just accept what's been given, because they are always fearful that it would be taken away. We see earlier on this conversations about Let us go back. At least then we knew when our food was coming. At least then we knew where things were happening. These are not people who are settled and okay and have recovered. They haven't processed what's happened to them. They've come straight out and they've been moving. And suddenly they're in a situation where the people they are reliant on, and primarily Moshe, he suddenly disappears. He goes up a mountain. The text, we see them ask in the text, like, where has he gone? We don't know where he's gone. Where is he? Is he coming back? What are we going to do? We're so fearful, we're so worried, we're so concerned about what's going to happen to us, that we need to create something that can hold the space or allow us to focus our attentions and our worries and our concerns on now. And so they build the golden calf, which is understood as an idolatrous act, that they're building something to worship, but in some ways I think is less about them finding a God to worship and finding something to which they can direct their fears. It's the golden calf for me is not supposed to be God, but supposed to be Moshe. And in that moment, Aaron has a choice, which is to turn to them and try to console them and try to make them understand that while Moshe isn't there, they are still loved, they are still protected, they are still cared for. And we don't see that at all. We see him utterly fail to console them. And in fact, seeing this act that they're doing, he goes along with it. He allows them to do something which he must have known would be perceived negatively by Moshe and God, because his actions and his words to Moshe when he comes down are to sort of throw the people under the bus.
It's one of the moments of beautiful theater of Torah, of those who study Parsha each week, is Moshe says, "What's this?" And Aaron says, "They just threw the gold in, and pop, this golden calf came out." It's almost like a kind of Monty Python. Nothing happened. Nothing's here. But I think
the women who held on, who clung onto their jewelry. Many of the women clung onto it. They didn't hang it in, and that's why we have, that's why we're told we have Rosh Chodesh. But nevertheless, Aaron just absolves himself of responsibility. So he's absolved himself of responsibility as it relates to being a truly compassionate, supportive leader to a people who desperately need that that acknowledgement. They need to be heard. They need to be really,
that holding.
Yeah, to be given the information they need.
We're about to wrap up. We're about to wrap up, and I'll give you a couple of final words to offer us something to take away with this week. Just in a second, I'm drawn to this, the way that you describe it, in the sense of the 40 days that Moshe has gone from the people and from the camp and goes up this mountain, in the way that you describe, then represents any moment of waiting or any moment of anxiety that we might experience in our lives. And what we do with that time, or how we react, becomes to be very, very important, and comes to be, the moments when we reach out for anything, something to comfort us, is in some way or other represented in this week's Parsha, and those 40 days that Moses up the mountain, and in the reaction that people have of building the golden calf. I'm really keen to give you just a minute or 30 seconds to tell us a thought to go away with for this week. But it's great for people to kind of comment and send questions and react in the post below, so that we can hear what you think of our 10 minutes together. So do that. And Rose, the last words are with you. Just leave us with a thought to go away with for this week from this week's Parsha.
Yeah, so for me, what is profound is that there's a recognition that as bad and terrible and as awful as the people's actions are, it is not the thing that is ultimately going to define them. They have been failed by Aaron. They have been failed in some way by Moshe not giving them the information they need. But Moshe does intercede on their behalf, and he intercedes on their behalf. And as a result, there is the opportunity to receive the second set of tablets. They're given the gift of Shabbat. They're given the Mishkan, the sanctuary, which we heard about earlier, and they truly get to build and experience it. We're given all the laws that make our tradition, and there's this sense that we carry these traumas, we carry these worries for our lives. In the same way that we tell this story, we know what happened to our people. We talk about it and at Pesach. We carry these things, and we carry the pain and suffering of our ancestors, but we have tools at our disposal that can help us if we know how to use them. And we have leaders around us who have learned the lessons of our tradition and learned the lessons of our teachers. And I do love the fact that our tradition has leaders in it who are flawed, because we learn from that and we grow from that. And as leaders, we know that we need to be there to support people when they're suffering. And we know that the lesson from the people who are suffering is that there's a need to find the people in your life who can be there for you and truly lift you up and hold you when you're in pain. And that, in the same way that God, when we were given a second chance, gave us the gift of Shabbat and gave us these things that we know, these rituals and these traditions that we know infuse our lives with joy and hope and meaning and purpose, is that there are things around us that can do that. At any point in your life when you are suffering, find the people, find the tools, and find a way to access them. And I know it's really difficult. It's difficult, but for people to give themselves a second chance to seek that out, and for those of us around to give them the second chance to have the time and the space to find these things that they can use to live a life in which mistakes are not repeated and in which trauma is managed and held, and so we can live lives of true meaning and happiness.
I love this Parsha for its lesson about the possibility of second chances and the possibility that we can learn from mistakes and some of the experiences that we have and really emerge to be better and live fuller lives. Rose, it's a pleasure having you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.